Greetings, this is Paul, your Pacific Northwest trail guide. I want to help you pick your next trail to explore, so let's check this one out. Just inside the Mount Rainier National Park, near Crystal Mountain Ski Resort on the east side, sits the secluded cove of the Crystal Lakes. It's a relatively small area with a few ways in, which offers many options for different ways to explore and camp it. This guide takes you through entering from the Pacific Crest Trail outside the park, spending a night at each of the two Crystal Lakes, and exiting at the Crystal Lakes trailhead in the park. This plan also allows you to take a pack-off trip up to the top of Crystal Peak on the second day. Overall, you'll cover about 15 miles and ascend over 4,000 feet over the 3 days. The campsites for this route are within the Mount Rainier National Park, so you'll need to get a permit for each specific site for each night of your stay. You can either reserve this ahead of time on recreation.gov or show up at the park ranger station up to 24 hours before you enter to try for a walk-up permit. If you are trying to do this last minute, be aware that the White River Ranger Station is inside a timed entry area for the park. So make sure you show up outside the 7 to 5 p.m. or get that permit ahead of time. If you need a nearby place to camp the night before so you can be there early, I recommend the Ranger Creek Campground, only 10 miles north. It has a lot of large, decently equipped sites, and you just need a Northwest Forest Pass to camp there. Entering Mount Rainier National Park on Highway 123, you eventually reach Highway 410 and turn left on it, and soon reach the Crystal Lakes trailhead, just a little north of the White River Road intersection. You'll drop off a car here, then drive back south on Highway 410 to the area around Chinook Pass Overlook. Just past the overlook on the left side of the road is a trailhead parking area where you'll start your hike. Pick up the trail near the back of the parking lot where you'll see the Pacific Crest Trail sign. For the first day, we'll be following the Pacific Crest Trail up to Sheep Lake and over a ridgeline through Sourdough Gap. Soon after that, we leave the PCT and follow the Crystal Lakes Trail down to our first night's camp at Upper Crystal Lake. After you get started and go up the little PCT connector a bit, you reach this sign and go right to continue on the PCT heading north. Proceeding up a nice gradual incline, the views up this canyon are magnificent. Eventually, you turn away from the canyon into some thin woods. Sheep Lake comes into view, which is often a busy place. It's a nice place to cool off and take a break. After continuing on the PCT past the lake, the trail continues to ascend and gets less busy. Getting closer to the ridge, the trees thin out a bit and you approach Sourdough Gap. Another magnificent canyon sprawls out before you.
Coconut steaks for everybody when we get to camp.
Nice. Or does it say do not go there? Oh, it is.
The PCT dives down into the canyon, but we continue straight across it here to now follow the Crystal Lakes Trail. After you pop out over the ridge on the other side of the canyon, you now pass into the boundary of the Mount Rainier National Park. There's also a little side loop near the top here that you can explore to get an early look off a cliff down to Upper Crystal Lake. On a clear day, you can see the top of Mount Rainier poking up beside Crystal Peak here also. But as you can see, the clouds were blocking it when I was passing through. Joining back up with the main trail here after that, you proceed gradually down towards the lake in a roundabout way as the trail follows the ridge down. Coming here late in the summer rewards you with lots of stunning wildflowers to see. But I suppose being here in the early summer with drifts of snow here and there would offer another kind of beauty too. As you get close to the lake, a sign indicates the location of the campsites is past the lake outlet, which is a quarter of the way around the lake on the west side. After crossing the meager trickle of water at the lake outlet, You approach campsite 1 on the other side. Continuing on past campsite 1, campsite 2 sits up on a little hill right next to a trail that heads off towards the bear pole and toilet. Campsite 2 has a little more space, but not all of it is level. The lake view up here is pretty nice too, though. The fact that there are only 2 campsites on the lake means you may have the whole lake to yourselves as evening approaches. It's quite the contrast to the bustle of day hiker activity. Yes indeed, campers, you will need to dig 0 holes on this trip. Settle in for the night as the clouds are sucked up to the lake and appear to be consumed by it. Day 2 of our trip takes us down only a half mile to the lower Crystal Lake, where we'll camp the second night. We're not done exploring for the day though, of course, because we'll be either setting up camp or dropping most of our weight here and spending most of the day hiking up to the top of Crystal Peak. Heading back across the outlet in the morning, we pick up the trail just past it, turning left to head down to the other lake.
Looking out for his waterfall.
Follow along this short half mile with Crystal Peak towering up off to your left as you descend. You pass this beautiful wildflower-studded natural spring on your way. Yep. Soon you reach the path to the lake and campground, which heads off to the left. This camp is a little more centrally organized, and you pass the trail to the toilet and the bear pole right away with a camp on each side. This lake also only has 2 campsites. Camp 2 is off to the left and is the more secluded of the 2. Yeah, it's a little bent. Campsite 1 on the right is a little closer to the easy lake access. Wow. Also, if you follow behind this camp and cross the lake outlet, a small path leads around the lake to a nice beach area, which might be a great spot to cool off in the water after a day hike.
Day hike commence.
Getting started on your trip to Crystal Peak, we head out to the main trail and turn left to head downhill. We descend for about a mile this way to get to the junction with the trail to the peak.
One I always remember was emergency. See that one?
No.
The big paddles, the defibrillator paddles. And every other show they had to get those out. He's having a heart attack. Clear! It didn't work. Shock him again. They're always bringing somebody back. Yeah. SGH alphabet. All right, EFG.
You reach the junction and turn sharply left to head towards Crystal Peak, which is another 2.5 miles from here. Shortly after the junction, you'll cross a log bridge over a pristine Crystal Creek. Last chance to fill up on water here for the long climb up to the top. After your brief dip into the subalpine forest near the creek, you quickly ascend out of it and across a rocky slope and back into the thin alpine trees.
Oh yeah. Is that a river? Is that the White River?
This very long stretch steadily ascends up the hillside, with views up into the White River Canyon and Mount Rainier beyond. The huckleberries are especially plentiful on this hillside, so there's no shortage of snacks in late summer. After the long stretch, you finally reach a switchback and continue on up. This stretch is a little shorter, and you soon reach a second switchback, which lets you know you are getting close. A few more smaller ones and you reach this overlook facing Crystal Mountain. Just a short little scramble up the ridge brings you to the top of Crystal Peak. From here you have a great vantage down to the Crystal Lakes and peaks all around. After making your way back down that little scramble from the peak, you'll be on your way for a steady descent back to camp. I'm not sure why this sooty grouse was so keen to talk to us as we passed by her favorite log, but she sure was friendly. Beautiful. Fine accommodations.
Does look inviting.
Yeah. I'm not sure if Mount Rainier is ever cloud-free, but at least it showed its top for a bit as we were descending the peak here. That stretch seemed a lot shorter coming down.
Yeah, it did.
Here we are.
Continuing your journey back down the long slope, eventually you reach the crossing with Crystal Creek again, and then head back up the steep 1-mile climb back to camp from the junction.
Oh yeah, 1.6. Okay.
To where?
Cedar Lake. It said Crystal Lake.
Our last day is a short one, as we have only to head downhill for about 2.5 miles down to the Crystal Lakes trailhead.
in a wheelchair when she was like for most of the time I knew her. She would do the crutches sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But one time we were at her house and she was up on top of the driveway and the wheelchair was locked. And I don't know. Just a softer picture.
The route heads steeply down, and shortly after this long boardwalk, there's a nice Mount Rainier viewpoint if you want to roll the dice one more time and hope for it to actually be visible. I hope the clouds cooperate for you. The ratings for this route are pretty standard stuff. There are no special obstacles to contend with on terrain. For elements, consider the elevation and exposure to time this ride if you want to avoid snow. The length and climb per day are pretty average, but I will rate it 2 out of 5 on the length, because the first and last days are pretty short. You might also do this as a one-nighter by just going straight to the lower lake the first night and exiting the next day after visiting Crystal Peak. Well, that wraps it up for this edition of Pacific Northwest Trail Guide. I hope I have or will soon help you pick your next trail to explore. I scouted this trail in August of 2025, but trails are always evolving. If you pick this trail and encounter any changes people might like to know about, please help out your fellow explorers by sharing in the comments on this video. I've shown some of the beautiful sights of this trail in what feeble capacity video can render. A picture may be worth 1,000 words, but an experience with all of your senses can't even be conveyed in pictures or video. So don't take my word for it. Get out there and see it for yourself.